Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the NLC Division 2 Game 4. Just a couple minutes away, London United, bottom of the table, going up against, it is Rising Dawn Esports, one of our promotees. Obviously, we had two teams promoting into the NLC Div 2, and I think they've done a fair job. They've made some good upgrades in the offseason in my eyes, and it's a strong roster, I would say.
Yeah, definitely so. I'm not gonna lie, I totally zoned out. I'm assuming you're talking about Rising Dawn. I hope that's the
Rising
case.
Dawn,
Okay.
Rising Dawn.
Because I was gonna say, London United had pretty turbulent roster issues.
Yeah.
The heat, man, the heat is getting to me just very slowly. It's the humidity more than the actual heat itself. But yeah, as you say, very strong roster. Hasn't quite always been hitting the ceiling that we were potentially expecting, but we are hopefully still going to see them in playoffs. Still, that battle is going to continue by the looks of the table to rage on until the final weeks of the split. But this is a matchup where we do expect Rising Dawn to take it home. For London United, it is definitely about going to be about damage control for the rest of the split at this point on. It's a 2-game gap between like being out of relegation and 8th place. London United are still 3 games away from Munster, and that is just going to be a very tough gap to close. So
You kind
I
of need
think,
this win, right? If you want to.
yeah, we are kind of starting to look at a situation where the expected result is relegations, and whilst I don't want to doom and gloom London United to that fate, it's just a very tough position to be in, where you're asking them to effectively go on a 5-game win streak, end 8 and 10 effectively.
It is.
Yeah.
Hard.
So
And
yeah, it's
Rising Dawn
just,
not the easiest team to beat.
yeah, no, they're not. And I think especially when you look towards their end of split schedule as well. Obviously, they have Rising Dawn now. Next week, it's Domino into Lightside, which, to be fair, it's a middle of the pack team fighting in the playoffs positions, and then obviously Lightside, who more and more are starting to potentially maybe not look like our second place team, but today the results went their way, fortunately, and everybody in the top 3 actually lost, which does definitely make the rest of the table a lot more exciting, and that honestly pushes the agency towards London, not London, into Rising Dawn to try and pick up a win, to actually, try and keep pace, because we could end the day with Rising Dawn, Domino Unique, and Rate all sat at 8 and 6. A 4-way tie for 3rd place is actually something that has a lot of potential here to end the day. As we are finally into picks and bans. On the London United side, expect to see the Carthus, the Akshan, and then probably the Camille, though some teams have started to taper off that ban away from Bankstead. So we could end up with a pretty, as Gorborg would say, overloaded draft. Simply because a lot of these target bans are going to come out on the red side. But Rising Dawn sticking to the very normal things, the Yumi and the Wukong being taken off the board.
Yeah, Rising Dawn Esports, as you say, right? They want to capitalize on the opportunity to close the gap to the top. And as you say, for London United, the expected result or demotion. And the sad thing about it is now you have to go out and win games in which you are not expected to win. They're not expected to beat Rising Dawn, but they kind of need to. So they hopefully show something good today. For me, I would very much look at Woldu to be the guy who unlocks the early game. He had a pretty good NLC Division 3 split with a former raid roster, which then wasn't a part of raid anymore with all this Div 2 thing. But you mentioned the Akshan on the bans. It does get thrown on the ban board. Other than that, the Monkey as well, Wukong. And luckily, a lot of enchanters. Again, both Yumi and Seraphine removed off the table, as it is the first pick now for Vax. So let's see what he locks in for his team.
Alright, I'm just going to go out on a wild guess and say it's going to be Volibear.
You're very well here.
Actually, to be fair, this is Pharaoh, but
you
there we go. Yeah, right. With the bands there, it's like Callista, like the 2 out of 3 of the typical B1 champions on this patch, or the very common ones at the very least, have been removed away. Seraphine as well, so that'll be that. As London United hovering the Ezreal, obviously does make a whole bunch of sense. You see the Volibear, what is one of the better AD carries at surviving dives early on in the game. It can be Ezreal with some of that survivability from the Arcane Shift. Get a good Arcane Shift off and you avoid some CC, all of a sudden the enemy team, if you're talking super early before level 6, it can get a little bit messy. Once, obviously, Volibear can turn off the towers, you're more about buying time. Hopefully you can trade out and just survive those dives. But could see an immediate sort of like support pairing. And yeah, I guess Karma could technically end up being that. It's not something that we have seen for a little while, I feel, to be honest with you. I think it's something that typically only gets put together with this Ezreal these days. But my problem does definitely lie in, what if Limitless just goes something super aggressive like Draven? Because Limitless kind of play that will pull out something super aggressive like the Draven. And then you also end up with a hard engage support like Nautilus, so you get confirmed knockdown. Kai'Sa kind of works in the same vein because that is one of the sort of AD carries that's been picked a lot into Ezreal historically. Once you hit that level 6 mark, as long as you've got the Plasma Reply, then you can actually dive in with the Killer Instinct. You just kind of wait for the Arcane Shift to come out, and you can always capitalize and follow up if you want to commit to those dives, and there you go, the Nautilus comes through. So it's just a full kill lane for the bottom side of the map. Now London United, I expect the Trundle, and they beat me to the point.
You are, honestly just reading this very well, Jamada. And we are now heading into the second ban phase, as it is the junglers and bot lane. So we're looking at the top lane and the mid lane pool to really turn around. And for me, the two I'm very excited for the solo lanes. I think Denzel had a very good qualification into NLC Division 2. He played very beautifully in those series that I watched. And Vangsted, of course, the Banger Diffan, had to come up in Danish scene just last year, and now obviously 3rd place in spring. He's a carry top laner, we know it, and that's why the GP gets removed.
Yeah, exactly. And don't be too surprised to also see the Camille get taken off the board as well. Just for the simple sake of Vangsted definitely is one of his comfort champions. And when you're already looking at so much dive, I think taking away anything that can facilitate that dive or be a part of it would definitely be a very smart move. That's part of the reason why I see the Gangplank probably removed away. And I expect to see that Camille follow suit, which definitely would put a lot of priority then on Super Big Fun, locking in something blind like the Gnar. So maybe Rising Dawn, just kind of read that, take that one away, and then you start to really get down into the slightly lower tiers of top laners, or the the tops kind of like Sejuani, and then everything else that follows. I think honestly Gnar is just probably the best ban to go for here. Otherwise Super Big Fun kind of just gets to blind it for free. And it's not that it's the most oppressive pick in the world, but it's such a telegraphed pick that you might as well just remove away because it's just so much safety. But they go towards the Sylas instead. So taking off from Bear Tree's champion pool, I wonder what that actually spells for Denzel in the mid lane. My anticipated pick is Gnar, but maybe there is something else in the tank for Super Big Fun. Just the issue is, if you run some of these melees into the likes of Vangsted, you can always expect, something like a Darius to come out, and that's always really risky. So I expect to see this safer top lane pick, though hovering over the Veigar, and they are going to lock it in.
Veigar mid lane.
Yeah, and it's an interesting pick because definitely it does well at dealing with mobile dive, right? Because you can obviously baby cage a lot of those champions in. But with dive, like the sort of tools at the moment that Rising Dawn are showing, it is definitely going to be quite scary. And I think Gwen would actually be a pretty smart blind. I think at the moment there are a couple of picks that could maybe come into it and do very well. But I think if you're looking at the composition of London United and also dealing with some of the disengage tools, Gwen has quite a few strong tools of actually catching up, right? The Ghost, the Ultimate, but also the Shroud in order to sort of block out a lot of the damage and also just entirely remove the possibility of getting stunned by the baby cage as well. It is a very strong tool to have, so I quite like that, and now Denzel has his pick in the mid lane.
So let's see what the last pick will be. Obviously, you mentioned it. He's able to get the counter, right? So what has he thought up? It is gonna be the Swain. We saw it obviously earlier today for Curl. Had a pretty good amount of success in the team fights, obviously. Very close game. They ended up losing it, but I'm excited to see Denzel on it. I would have liked to see him on the Sylas. Obviously, that's ban. That's the one I remember him getting some good highlights on. But the top lane matchup now set in stone, as it's the Aatrox locked in for Super Big Fun.
Yeah, so Super Big Fun has lent on this Aatrox quite a bit. Not too surprised to see him default to it for comfort. Definitely a very strong champion situationally, but especially into a dive composition that's very short range, wants to come into him anyway. It kind of removes that Aatrox wanting to move forward part that we see very commonly with a lot of dive comps. Sometimes if some of those more mobile champions like Camille are taken off the board, sometimes you'll see Aatrox in its place because obviously the Well-Dender gives you so much movement speed. It's a reset snowballing team fight tool. But honestly, Aatrox thrives just as well on the opposite end. If people are coming into him and he doesn't have to do any of the work, it makes hitting those sweet spots very easy, makes having access to the healing very simple. And that's why we see it come in, as well as it being a comfort. So I think London United honestly have quite a few strong tools to deal with this dive. And one thing I really want to highlight is, obviously, yes, you have the Volibear and the Kai'Sa, and yes, they will predominantly be doing physical damage, but there's a lot of magic damage baked into those kits too. You have two AP solo laners, and you also have a Nautilus. I think London United should definitely invest into a little bit of magic resist, because I think it will go the distance in reducing a lot of the damage that Rising Dawn will be able to put out. And not only that, when you look at the champions, the frontliners in particular, Aatrox is very happy to pick up a Maw, and then even maybe a Spirit Visage later on in the game. Obviously, Trundle typically goes Divine Thunder into full tank, so seeing Divine Thunder into the likes of a Force of Nature, very, very powerful tool in my mind. I think London United honestly have given themselves a very strong draft to deal with some of the tools that Rising Dawn have. It's about whether or not they can actually stand up to some of the early game options in terms of the Volley Bear, the Nautilus setup in the bottom side, and maybe the top lane matchup, just because we know Vangstead on a dime will flip some top lane matchups, which are pretty volatile, but then if they go in his favor, the ball keeps on rolling and he doesn't stop until somebody puts a damn mountain in front of him.
That's kind of the thing, right? It's something I talked about a lot back in the spring split when we had Lundorf and Vangstead going up against each other when I guessed it here, and they are both top laners that I should say, right? They are the more willing to flip, they are confident, they will go for it if they believe they can take it. If it fails, yes, they can sometimes look pretty bad in the sense that, you know, they end up flipping it a couple times and then all of a sudden the lane is just so hard for them to play. But if it works, and luckily, more often than not, it does, they build up these leads and then they're so good at taking the leads, pushing them ever further. And I should say, they have to send the whole team up to just put a damper on them.
Yeah, and a champion like Gwen as well, you have to remember, so powerful. Like at one item spike, she is kind of, she falls under that category. I don't know if you mentally have this for top laners that are just exceptionally good at 2v1ing in ganks. You know, champions like Aatrox actually on occasion into some of those like duo melee top jungles, Darius, Alawi, champions like that have a really good setup into sort of multiple champions that are coming and advancing into their ranges. Yeah, so I think Vangstead, especially if he gets the ball rolling, is really gonna be pretty okay in that top side matchup. But it's definitely one that I've seen go both ways. I think Aatrox, in theory, should be winning it because in most of those melee matchups, he does have a pretty positive time. There's very few that he doesn't win.
And I kind of want to talk about, there was something I quickly opened up, this kind of worms, about the roster changes made for Rising Dawn Esports being pretty smart. For me, what I like about them is the fact that they have kept the core of what qualified them as typically boosted animals into the NLC Division 2. Fat Ariel, Denzel, and Fine Forever all having great performances in the promotions. And to me, also that jungle duo Rock, having kept that, is very nice alongside a mid laner who performed very well. And then they've made some smart, sensible upgrade in Limitless and Vangstead to their solo lane in the top lane and duo lane in the bot lane. And especially for me, Vangstead, right? I mentioned it, top 3 NLC last split. We know how good of a player he is when things get rolling. I very much like the changes they have made, and I think they have, you know, kept a strong core from their promotion split, so their identity of typically boosted animals is still there, while strengthening their roster, and we see it. They are at the moment in playoffs as a promoted team, which is very impressive.
Yeah, you know, actually, even on the point of Vangstead, I would go as far as saying if he was just a touch more disciplined in some of his moves. I'd say maybe the better way to put it is if he was a slightly less emotional player. For it. It feels like he really does work a lot of hype, especially if you have watched any Vangstead interview.
Yes.
You kind of tell from his character that is the kind of player he is. But he is very mechanically gifted. And I wouldn't be too surprised that if a little bit of work comes in on some of those issues of kind of just getting a little bit too excited, a little bit overeager, that we even see him like kind of make the reach up to Division 1 by like sort of next summer, maybe even spring if he finds himself on sort of a middle of the pack sort of expectation team. Very nice to see him up there.
I definitely see them as a rally. And I think a good way to put it, right, is he's a big personality, and when you get Vangstead in your roster, you get all of Vangstead. Yes, you get the couple of games where, you know, he takes these risks, and sometimes the discipline isn't quite there and it doesn't work out, but you also get those great games, right? You get the whole Vangstead package, and in the end, I would be confident enough in saying the Vangstead package is a good deal. Fling Esports Elite felt that last split, as he was a big part of them getting into 3rd place.
Yeah, definitely a double-edged sword, though, with how Vangstead is right now. That's why I say work on discipline. Hopefully we get to see him up there. But focusing more on the game directly, haven't really seen jungles do too much here. Both full cleared, both going towards Skull Crabs, respectively, on their strong sides. It seems like they're both just going to end up resetting, because that's what Fatarel's done. It doesn't really look like Warjo has much to do on that side of the map. Might get another ward down for a little bit of information. Actually, the Grump has spawned. Will he take the bait? The answer is no. So, just going to get that information and probably reset. Actually, no. Has the Krogs to go back to? I guess he started top and went bot, right? So his Krogs have already respawned. So he's like, okay, I'll take him again.
Just on the full clear.
Oh, one thing I will say. Okay, he's going to go for the gank on top side, but what I will say, Trundle players, stop maxing Q. It's not as good as maxing W. You get more stats from W. Anyway, he's going to go and gank Vangstead.
Let's see how this works out. Gwen is immune, but not when you're inside the hallowed mist. should be able to get taken down. The pillars there, first blood. And now though, Fat Ariel will try and get something back. The good combo was there. The damage is certainly there as well. Volibear early, very strong in this patch, but a 1v2 is a bit too much for him to chew off, and he has to back off in the end. Flashes out, but he forces a couple of extra summoners stepping in there.
Yeah, does manage to get Super Big Fun's flash in exchange for his own, so maybe they can look for a dive in the next couple of minutes, even if level 6 comes in perhaps. Maybe that's when they look to go for that target, but I expect Fat Ariel to be playing more towards the bottom side. I think you have so much setup down there. You're going to be looking to try and pick up an early dragon just to sort of leverage that bottom side matchup. The only thing you might run into in terms of issues there is maybe priority, but again, if you're able to just have a Nautilus hook connect, that is almost certainly going to be death. As I believe you have a replay of the top side play being queued up. There you go. I was like, is it coming? So there you go. So you can see Woljo actually gets spotted out on vision. And this is a really good vision toggle. Thank you very much, Reese. So he doesn't know this ward is even there in the first place, but it's just kind of unfortunate timing for Vangstead, because he thinks that he's got time to shove this in, because Woljo should be on Krugs, but he actually just came back to the lane, kind of ignored it. Yeah, he saw that he was going for the shove and said, oh, okay, I'm going to punish this. Super Big Fun, sticks around.
Doesn't get the Drake as well.
Yeah,
coming out of the replay. One thing I very quickly want to highlight here, in terms of the damage thing, I think it's a very important itemization from Fat RL. Normally, the Volibear in like competitive play has been seen going more the Turbo Chem Tank build, and it's the more standard build, I would say. It's what happens most often, but you mentioned it. You have double AP solo lanes. Kai'Sa also does some AP damage. In terms of the passive, Nautilus's damage is mainly AP as well, in terms of the little bit that he does. So for Fat RL, it's very important to go the more damage-oriented build. Whichever path he ends up going, you know, Trinity Force or whatever, I'm very happy to see that he is able to recognize the fact that, okay, I'm actually not only going to be a tank, I also have to dish out some damage, otherwise they can just like magic resist.
Yeah, definitely so. And again, it's not like, you know, Volibear and Kai'Sa are crazy like AP damage dealers, but it's more about that, you know, they're not Aatrox, for example, whose kit is entirely AD. Because there is like a certain percent, I normally sort of phrase it as around 25 to 20% of their kit is magic from Kai'Sa, and you can maybe technically argue maybe the ratio is a bit higher for Volibear, but personally I don't think it is. I think it's about the same. Yeah, the magic resist really does go a long way for London United, and I think if they do pick it up when you look across the rest of the draft, it is just going to help hamper a little bit of the damage potential from Rising Dawn. And it's not even about buying a whole bunch. It's like, you know, if you're Rusty Sniper and, well, maybe not Jamzu, because I think Jamzu wants to just beeline to the support item as soon as possible, but just being able to sit on a null magic, right? Even if it doesn't really lose you too much. Oh, Vangstead
is... And the 1v1 needlework didn't really work out for him. He got Super Big Fun low. Oh, no. He does have some fancy feet though. He's buying time, and Fat RL has made his way up there. Doesn't have the flash, but does have the Stormbringer if they want to go for the dive. I think his Q got cancelled, so he should have it back off. As the Subjugate comes through to steal some resistances and do a little bit of damage, Fat RL has to back out of this one. Woljo very tanky with those extra resistances. So Fat RL will try and get out. And as you say, the red buff forces him to use that Stormbringer so they can't get Super Big Fun, but still aligning, Vangstead survives.
Yeah, Vangstead does survive. That's the important part. Super Big Fun. Came pretty close to going down there with the Ignite as well, but you'd expect London United to try and, well, have walked out of that with one kill. And yeah, Vangstead wants to get this wave. It's going to be stacked up. It's going to be quite a bit. And he certainly would have missed it. Oh my goodness me. That Sky Splitter almost takes down Super Big Fun. Now, they do see that Vangstead is there, but because that Sky Splitter came in, I think they're just going to respect the fact that Fat RL could just literally come and sit underneath this tower. He's alright. Oh, minus one.
That is Vangstead.
Shake my head.
Wow, that was tight. I saw it on the map, and I saw Observer didn't highlight it, so I was like, oh yeah, maybe he should just misses, but then he could have baited us. I want to highlight though, we are 9 minutes in. The mean turret has been up for 1 minute, and Fat RL, he is on it at the moment after clearing his top side. So he will be getting that for free as Woljo is about to reset.
Yeah. Free pick up for Rising Dawn. And, even though they did lose that first blood kill pretty early on, they do find themselves up a little bit of gold. CS making the difference. They clawed that back. They will also have this Herald now to pick up a little bit of additional gold. Bear Tree.
Battery's dead. He's just dead. It was a very good rotation. Limiters has rotated up as well, and that's a good kill on him. it's very nice getting your main AD damage ahead. So as we talked about, it's not just gonna have to be one of these Fat RL or Limitless who will be dealing all the AD. Getting AD carry ahead, always nice.
Yeah. This Herald just going to get dropped immediately in the mid lane. Just going to look for the plates for now. And maybe if they can pick up the second one, they will be able to take this tower entirely. Oljo?
Has to be careful here. Has to respect it. Knows he has his support around, but be a little bit careful as Vangstel in the hell open miss. Doesn't juke the damage though. Will the needlework be enough this time? No, not quite. Flash wave from Super Big Fun as the emote yet again comes out. Can Vangstel re-engage this? Does he want to? It's probably the more precise question to ask, as they are both around the same HP. Vangstel doesn't have Ignite, but he will have it in 15 if he drags this fight out long enough.
Yeah, it's kind of things like that. That's what I mean. Like, imagine if Vangsted had taken that 1v1 with the Ignite.
Oh, no.
Like, he would probably win. And now he's sticking around a little bit, has that ward, so he's going to at least have the information. And he won't stick around to find that Woljo would have ganked him had he stepped a little bit too far forward, and he could even actually look to just reset. Which seems to be the case, though. Super Big Fun will stop it.
Oh, missed?
Could.
And Vangstel's going for this, but he gets pulled back with the Eternal Chains, and he gets sentenced to the Death Realm by Woljo.
Yeah, pretty close, though. Ignite comes up, but again, as I was actually making that point, imagine if he had the Ignite in the initial 1v1. He probably would have... Well, he would have come a little bit closer. I think Super Big Fun probably would have flashed earlier if the Ignite had come down, to be realistic. But those are the kind of small windows, the differences in some top lane plays. But Vangsted not having the best of times up here. Woljo definitely paying a lot of attention to the top side of the map. But Rising Dawn will make up for it with a dragon takedown at the very least. And Matt, how many clouds is it today? Is this our third one of the day? It's our third one.
Yeah, that is the third. Wow. I guess we don't have exciting soul fights this Geneva. It's just, I don't know. Riot doesn't want to give it to us.
Long game.
Is it you who is sitting there, controlling the game, just saying, no, we take Cloud Soul every game? You know, casters control more than we know.
Another viewers are like, man, you guys are saying how you control everything. Just press the button, bro. Like, make it.
Yeah, man, I haven't even changed this. I guess we're like sleeping on it. I should update my software. Maybe it doesn't really work correctly. I actually broke the momentum meter yesterday on the NLC. Like I broke the whole thing. It wasn't that great. In the Singularity game. I don't know. Like I was having fun with it, so every time Bifrost won a fight, I gave them 5 points. Like it was a late game team fight, right? I was very excited. Then Singularity won a fight, I gave them 5 points. And then suddenly, when I wanted to give 5 points back to Bifrost because they had won a fight, it didn't work. So it was like Bifrost with 0 points, even though they were actually the one with momentum, because all the points had been given and were no takebacks on the side of Singularity.
That was pretty funny. I never noticed, actually. I think I was a little bit too busy being excited for the fact that Singularity finally won a game.
Yeah, it was very hype. It was very hype. I mean, it would be hype as well if LDN United managed to get this win. They are in the game 13 minutes in. And first item starting to come through here for Fat RL and Limitless. Other than that, Gordringer also completed for Super Big Fun. Drake has been taken, and that really catches up with the game as Super Big Fun and Banks, they're just constantly duking it out here. Needlework available, so is the world, and the junglers up here as well. Super Big Fun goes back in, but Flash from Fat IRL will secure the kill. Another look for Woljo as well. He does have the red smite, he has to subjugate, so Banks still has to run. The damage is certainly there from Woljo to take him down. A big bite from Fat IRL is not enough to save his top laner, but he'll get him back in return.
You will get him back in return. Farrell almost managed to save Vangsted, but enough burst damage just wasn't quite there. Shoving the wave just to ensure that Super Big Fun maybe has to TP back to this lane. Farrell's actually going to get 2 plays for himself. I respect it.
Farrell, he's becoming very strong. Like at this point, 1 item on the Volibear.
Oh.
Something's happening in bot as Limitless. Killer instincts forward. Jamsu forced to flash over the wall as they now look for Rusty Sniper, also flashing away as Denzel wants to take him down but can't follow through with the flash. So overall, 2 for 2 actually.
Yeah, 2 for 2, all things considered. I think it's very important to say Limitless is actually very, very strong.
Yes.
I think whilst we've been focusing on other parts of the map, it's very crucial to highlight that bottom side tower is actually quite chunked out. Didn't lose a whole bunch of plays. Looks like 3, and most of them must have gone to Limitless by himself. Because he's got the Kraken Slayer and a Dirk. Super Big Fun in trouble yet again. Ignites there. I think he's just gone. So yeah, Limitless, super, super strong. Wow. Already an item and a half. And that collector is 3,000 in total. He's only got 2.1k. How much gold does he have in his bank right now? Yeah, so he's 1k away from a collector already.
God damn. 50 minutes in, 2 items casted. That sounds scary and very, very strong. So game is really starting to go a bit more in the favor of Rising Dawn Esports, such that now, you know, starting to be able to convert these kills into some turrets as well. And for me, at this point, I really want to look at Federal. 50 minutes into the game, he's got the kill. He's a pretty good state for Volleyball. This is really the point where he is incredibly strong. Being a bit more tanky as well with the HP he just bossed. So I'm very excited to see where will he be going to continue and extend this lead. The bot lane might be the answer, as the fight is definitely here. 3v3 at the moment. Federal running in as well too. Man, never move. Battery shows up though, but it's not enough to save his support. Federal looks to run them down here, but he has to juke quite a bit of CC and won't be able to close the gap. In the end, a 1-0.
1-0, great pickup from Rising Dawn. Denzel finds his mark with that never move. Now they're just going to look to siege out with this wave, pick up this tier 1 on the bottom side. See if they can find any jungle camps perhaps on the back of it, but as you can see, Waljo is actually on this side of the map. Just going to clear that one away to ensure that the resources are secure. And actually, as a very weird callback to something I called out, Waljo did max W in the end. He just put 2 points into Q, which I guess is also something that is fairly common. 3 points now, but it did end up maxing W. And again, I will PSA that. Don't max Q. I know it feels like, you know, the right thing to do. It's not. W gives you so much additional stats compared to the AD per level that the Q gives you. And it also just makes you stickier. And that's kind of the important part, especially if you don't have red buff in the early game. W stats just going to help you get to your target a lot easier. And you're just going to bonk them faster with your ice pillar. So do it. Yeah. I promise you, if you play Trundle, you will appreciate this advice. Someone who might not appreciate this advice is Vangsted, but it seems like he's going to walk out this one relatively unscathed.
Hello, it's available still, so yeah, he can do whatever he wants. I have a question for you, Damata. Do you know how the pillar works with the Hallowed Mist? If Woljo throws the pillar onto Baxter, who is in this Hallowed Mist, and Woljo's outside of the Hallowed Mist, does it still slow?
So it doesn't slow, but what it might do, because it's terrain, is bump it. It might bump it. That would be pretty reasonable. The other interaction is just outright, he kind of just phases into the terrain very temporarily. But I would assume that it just bumps him, but it doesn't actually... Hell, it might not even CC him. Because the thing about the pillar is, it's actually a pretty small bit of terrain. Back there. On top of this wall, look at Jamzu.
He's like, yeah, let's take this fight, and he takes down Jamzu instantly. Woljo forced to flash over the wall here to stay alive. I mean, Rising Dawn, they saw blood, and they took it.
Yeah, it's actually an interaction I've not seen too much. Really nice pick there onto Jamzu. Had no flash. Realized that was pretty free pick up. And London United, it feels like after the very early, you know, exchanges in the top side, London United haven't really been up to too much. And I think that can definitely be okay for a composition like this where I'm not going to say you inherently outscale, but you're looking to sort of deal with the dive. And, you know, I'm really glad that we've clicked on Bear Tree, because what I was going to ask is, Bear Tree has been relatively silent this game, as I have to hold this point. Fight could ensue here, Denzel.
And locked up goes Golden. And they will now look to burst Rusty Sniper, and they certainly succeed with that plan. A super big fun wants to go forward, but the damage just not quite there. They have gotten them low, but they haven't taken anyone down. He goes forward again though, the world ender down, but he could still look to turn this game around. Battery, flash, forward, secures the kill, and fall for the side of Rising Dawn Esports. 3 rather, but could be forced. Battery, very bravely, walks forward toward Vangster. I'm not sure that's one he wants to take. Vangster is the one who would look to turn it back. He gives up in the end. 3 kills for 1 in favor of London United.
So remember how I literally just cast the curse Rising Dawn and said that Bear Tree had been pretty quiet this game? Ooh, Vangster, that's a lot of damage. Super big fun.
It heals up very nicely with the Q as Vangster continues this trade. The healing again, though, snip, should be enough. A few more autos. Shoot the last Q! Super big fun. Had a lot of fun in that 1v1.
Yes, he did. No Ignite available for Vangsted, so he doesn't cut through that healing. Doesn't have an Oblivion Orb or anything like that. Just working with the raw damages and his own healing. Just that 1v1 shutdown goes over. And
this
honestly,
game could be messy.
Yeah, that is exactly... You took the words out of my mouth. Because what I wanted to allude to and build up the point of was that Bear Tree had been pretty silent, right? We'd seen London United obviously have a fair amount of success in their play towards the top side of the map. Bear Tree in the mid lane hadn't really been up to much, right? He got picked off in the mid lane by that 3-man gank. But aside from that, he'd been farming silently. And now I'm going to ask, because it doesn't look like anything's going to break out, can we click on him to see how many stacks he's got? Because he has been farming, you know, well enough. He's got 178 additional AP right now. He's got an Everfrost, has the Sork Pen Boots. He has just under 400 AP in total. That's obviously going to increase each time he farms up. With Q, hits champions, etc. And not only that, he's going to pick up a Death Cap second, and you have to recall that that item scales particularly well with a champion that can just get infinite AP.
Yeah,
And
it kind of sounds like it, right? You know,
yeah,
extra AP for the AP you have, and you get AP every time you kill a minion if you do it with Q.
As you would expect. You know, it increases your passive's efficiency by 35%, literally, right? So, that's pretty big chunk. And as we kind of highlight coming into the draft, London United, as a composition, deal fairly well with dive. And that's a lot of what Rising Dawn's theme is here. Moving forward, trying to lock down targets, burst them down, and then move on to the next. Whereas on London United's side, there's a fair amount of poke, a lot of zoning control tools, right? Pillar, the baby cage, things like, I guess, if you want to be super semantic, like even Karma Mantra Q, but you don't really want to see that used in team fights very often. Just zoning tools to try and keep some of these divers in place. Bear Tree caught out potentially, but
Caught out, I think you can say that twice, but a very good Event Horizon keeps him alive as he certainly waddles away to safety. A bit of a fail there as Fadarel couldn't quite jump over the terrain. So London United get out safely. And that was important because something that I really wanted to mention about the previous fight was that Super Big Fun was a massive part of that fight in terms of the damage he dealt, but more importantly, the front line he offered with all that healing, and he wasn't there for that team fight. But Rising Dawn, they poked him out, they got them to reset. They're on the Baron, 8k HP.
yeah, and one of the important things is that Denzel still has his ultimate, so he can come over and work as a massive zoning tool. And the rest of London United, they're just not here yet.
Yeah, it is simply gone, but they dash over the wall. They want some kills. They want to get something to avenge the fallen Baron. Super Big Fun picks up one, but can they get more? Woljo running towards them as the Event Horizon should catch on to Vangstel. No, Gwen is immune, ladies and gentlemen, as Vangstel will look to turn it back under the turret. Woljo dies, but he gets taken down instantly. Vangstel dancing very nicely around the Qs here from Super Big Fun, but should go down in the end. You can't be immune forever, Vangstel, as Rusty Sniper will take him down. But look at Denzel, he's in the bot lane with the Baron, taking down a turret. So 2 Barons survive. Or was it 3 actually? Yeah, 3 Barons survive in the end for Rising Dawn Esports.
Yeah, and Denzel even picked up 600 gold into his own back pocket. And it's only Vangsted that goes down. That's a very, very Rising Dawn thing to come out of my mouth, isn't it? Only Vangsted dies in the play.
I'm fine with that as well, actually. He died at the start.
Oh, yeah, he did die at the start, didn't he? Yeah, okay, fine. Fine Forever also died. So, 2-4, 1 from the very extended trade. Talking about from the start of the Baron. And they also pick up the Dragon, so really not too bad, if you ask me, for Rising Dawn. They still have about 1 minute and 50 seconds left on that duration of the buff. They can just try and look to siege up somewhere. But they're definitely running out of time because they're going to have to wait for a lot of these waves to catch up. Bottom side wave just got pushed in. Top side wave nowhere near anywhere. So they don't really have side lanes to work with. Vankster's going to have to go and readjust one of them. It looks like his choice is going to be the top side. Denzel going to move towards the bottom side of the map whilst the rest of the team are in the mid lane. But I think the problem is, you shoving a wave like this, now it's going to be out of sync with any kind of pressure you could potentially have. So the Baron buff is actually just in the long run, I think, going to end up being a bit of a dud here. They might at best maybe manage to force them off of the tier 2 in like 35, 40 seconds time, but I just don't think they end up doing so. It's more or less if London United want to give that one up.
Yeah, Rising Dawn Esports certainly enjoying that play beforehand. Very big for them getting the Baron, getting out with 3 men alive. So overall a very successful play for them as they with this 4k goalie will try and gain even more onto the Baron. But pretty good wave at the moment from Rusty Snipe and Bear Tree, able to keep them all from pushing. But the side lane of Vangstel will get this shirt down to half. Hasn't bought any like anti-heal other than the Oblivion Orb, so it's the small anti-heal he has to deal with at the moment, but it might be enough. Bear Tree's here. Gwen could still be immune, by the way. Vangstel could look to turn this back around, and he certainly will. Goes golden. Bear Tree down to 40%. Vangstel dashes forward again. He wants it, but he will get blown up in the end.
Yeah, it does get blown up, but again, mid lane, tower goes down as expected. There's a wave on the bottom side, but they're not going to actually rotate on the inside. to look to chunk it out. Maybe worried about getting collapsed on. I think that's definitely a very sensible move. It just means that you're not going to get anything else out of the Baron. I mean, why risk it at the moment? Definitely, again, London United in a position where they can scale up and deal with some of these members, but they're going to have to rely a lot on Bear Tree's damage for a little while. I think Rusty Sniper's going to need at least another item before he can be really, really relevant. And I think that's kind of a scary thing to talk about when you're looking at Ezreal, who is very commonly sort of treated as that 2-item spike champion. I think he's going to need one more to hold a bit of a candle to some of the frontline diving that is available to Rising Dawn, or even just survive some of the dive, to be honest with you.
I do really want to point out that Battery is recording at the moment,
Yep,
and he
death
has
cap.
just gotten his death cap. So let's take an AP update on him. I want to see how strong did it make him. He has gotten 236 bonus AP from his passive now, 170 before, 726 AP. In my opinion, Jamada, that's quite a lot.
That's quite a lot for a mage. Most mages finish with around that much AP by the time they get to the end of their build. So,
And we're just
Yeah.
25 minutes in.
yeah, he's doing all right for himself. Yeah, 180 AP off of the Rabadon's ability of power increase. Not too shabby for the little Yordle. And he's going to deal so much damage now. That's the obvious conclusion to that. And he's already been doing a fair amount of execution damage already with that ultimate, right? I think in the top side when he Ardvanked that, I think he had about 700, 800 HP and it murdered him. Yeah, I mean, oh my god, I saw 1.5k on the end of the 1.6 now.
That is
At
also a lot
33%
of damage.
Yeah, like if somebody, let's say, for example, I think Fat RL has 3,000 HP right now. If he drops to, let's just say 1k, he should be dead by all rights. He has a Anatomas, which is why I say about 1k, because obviously 33%, loads of math stuff. I hope you can keep up with that. The reduced magic damage from the Anatomas should go a fair way, but again, that XQ damage from Bear Tree is going to be absolutely insane. The Primordial burst. And soon he will approach a point where he can just press Q and R on Limitless and he might die.
The worst part is when it gets to the point when it's just QW. And it's real.
I think
don't even need
there's a reasonable chance that Vigar can maybe already just QR Limitless and he'll die. If not Q, then definitely W and like.
Yeah, I think a full combo will for sure kill Limitless at the
Yeah,
moment.
full combo kills, but we're more wondering whether or not he can just use 2 spells. Because that's a little
cool. That's when it gets nice. Though,
Yeah, oh,
Baron is
Jamzu.
over. Limitless. I mean, he's not an AD carry, bro. He's an assassin.
Yeah, he is. I mean, Jamzu just kind of caught with his pants down in the middle of the lane. The rest of the team was rotating towards the Baron. He was just a little bit too slow on the rotation. Such a good capitalization for Limitless. Now Rising Dawn can just sit here in the mid lane and potentially just take the whole tower, because look at how wide London United's rotation was. They took it so safe. And that tower's gone.
Yeah, the tower depleted down to 0 HP in just a couple of seconds. Rusty Sniper tries to poke, but it is not enough to persuade them away from that inhibitor. It will fall. Now both objectives up soul for the side of Rising Dawn is in their eyes.
Yes, it is indeed. Rising Dawn pick this one up for free. And this is a game where, again, I kind of feel like the Soul... There's like 3 good users in this game. Out of 10. We're having the conversation again, because it's our third Cloud Soul of the day. Like, it's obviously insane on Aatrox. I think that goes without saying, right? His ultimate literally provides him with movement speed. It's part of the whole kit. Woljo?
Yeah, Fine Forever goes in, takes a lot of damage, but so does Woljo, and that's a very important smite they could remove. The fight is now split. A super big fan looks for Denzel, unable to lock him down in the end. Gets a good amount of damage, and what happens on the bot side in the meantime? Well, Vangstel, he'll take the turret, and he won't look for the inhib, or will he actually? He goes back in the needlework to clear the wave, so we want to hard force on this inhibitor. No, he just wants the wave.
No, but the thing is, now somebody has to come and react to this, because the next wave isn't going to spawn up for another 20 seconds, and those minions will kill the inhibitor over the course of the time. So it's going to force someone here. Problem is, no one's really using this tempo play because, well, as you can see, Rising Dawn just had to sort of disengage their own engage, because London United committed the teleport via super big fun. They just felt like it wasn't worth committing any longer. So all in all, I think for tracking the resources, the important ones actually got blown. Super Big Fun's teleport and Denzel's flash. Nothing else. Waljo's flash, actually, as well. So it's just those summoners that go down. And we're just looking towards the Baron for the next 5 minutes because the Elder obviously has a 6-minute spawn timer. And this is the only mega objective on the map. London United are going to have a pretty good idea that this is going to be starting roughly soon. They're going to make their way to it. This is fast.
Can Waljo get in? There is a blast cone if he
already.
wants to. It's
dead now.
gone. Oh, the blast cone was so good. It got Waljo on the completely wrong end of it. As Bear Tree steps up, should be able to assassinate Fine Fairy. No, he has to be careful. Not by the dredge line and depth charge. Or rooted up, but not taken down. Vangsted dashes forward. Needlework has been used, and with the Cloud Soul, Jamada, he is very fast, even faster than a Whirlwind. The Super Big Fun forced to flash away. Federal goes into the front, and he finds one as he dives towards Bear Tree, who flashes out to safety. There will be no safety from the side of London United as they get run down by Rising Dawn Esports. TP into the base for good fun as they will look to end the game here. Triple kill for Limitless.
Yeah, Limitless really silently became a bit of a hero for Rising Dawn in this game. So much damage, so many assassination attempts. Thanks to your KDA. Why? Okay, he's alive. Okay, fine. I forgot that the fountain doesn't execute, but really good looking game all in all from Rising Dawn. I think London United definitely had their very good and strong looking moments through the top side, but at the end of the day, it just felt like Rising Dawn's overarching pressure was just too much to deal with. I like the idea, though, from the London United draft. I think, again, you know, a lot of kiting components to that composition, a lot of, you know, anti-dive there. Unfortunately, it just never came to fruition. It felt like Rising Dawn were always able to find the targets that they wanted to find. Even in that final fight, I thought to myself, kind of chasing into the jungle entrance like that, it looked a bit risky onto Bear Tree. Really good defensive flash from him. And they were just kind of able to walk through that choke without getting blown up by anything, just because it felt like London United weren't really, I guess by that point they were just too far down in gold, but I feel like they never really got to a point where they were, I'm not even going to say at gold parity, but like sort of game state parity where the scaling can start to come online. Even if you're down in gold, you start to be able to have fights which are playable. We never got to that part, unfortunately, for London United, and they do take another L here. Important win again for Rising Dawn, right? We spoke about how we could end the day with 3 teams being tied at 8 and 5? 8 and 5, 8 and 4.
5, yeah.
8
and 5,
8 and 6.
8 and 6, wow.
And that win will do just that, put them up to 8 and 6. Very strong looking performance from them as they continue to battle up towards those 3rd and maybe even 2nd place positions up for grabs at the moment in the regular standings.
And with that, we will be heading into a break. When we're back, we will obviously have both teams, each one at a time, for losers and winners interview. And after that, it's game 5, baby. So, you know, we're getting towards the end of the day. See you after the break.